G'day, welcome back to the channel. The other day I got an email saying, congratulations, you've been invited to the 911 GT3 launch at Sydney Motorsport Park. Now it's a special day when you get an email inviting you to a GT3 event of any kind. So I was like, well, I'm not sure I can make it. So I gotta say, driving a manual winged GT3 was something that I just didn't think was ever gonna happen again. It really brings enjoyable country road experience to the track in that tight car, and then just being able to shift with the manual, which is an amazing manual. It's just so good. My 911's 50 years old, and it gives you those vibes of tight, amazing 911 performance car, shifting gears. So it was a hot day. We headed out onto the track, and there was an instructor in a lead car kind of keeping things under wraps, and they would slowly progress the speed if they were happy with the lines and the general competency. And we're in there going, yeah, you know, look at me, I'm a race driver. And then they get to the hot lap section of the day, and then you figure out where you sit. I jumped in with Luke Youlden reluctantly, mainly because I knew what was coming. I'd been for hot laps with champion rally driver in the previous generation GT3 and champion Carrera Cup driver Craig Baird in the 935 Moby Dick and previous Rennsport at the same track. Look, it's just an amazing experience to do a hot lap. My brain and my body went into shock afterwards, but during the experience, you can really get a feel for what these drivers are doing to the cars, where the limit is, and I think they're looking at us in the back of their vision mirror as they're driving and speaking on the radio and going, yes, he's got the line, but he's nowhere near the limit. And I think it's just amazing how capable these GT3 cars are. For a street car, driving with Luke and then seeing what the GT3 can do, it blows your mind. And I want to know, what's the percentage of owners that are really approaching the limit in the GT3, let alone needing the RS. Look, that's a conversation for another time. Wow, what a car. I catch up with Luke after the event. He gives us his thoughts on the car and how the incremental changes and coming from teaching people how to drive in the RS and then coming back to the GT3 and how that feels. The differences there, the suspension, front suspension is pretty much RS. I love that the manual is back in the GT3. Let's catch up with Luke now and let's get it happening. Can you feel the incremental differences in these cars as they're launched? Or is it just your ability to do things with them changes?
I would say both. I think that the big step with this car is you can do things that you shouldn't be able to do technique-wise, and it still copes with it. So, for example, you can have a lot of steering on and a lot of throttle on, which is not what you would normally teach someone. We teach magic string, as you're unwinding the steering wheel, you can actually, that's when you start to crack the throttle. Yeah. But this car, I wouldn't say you can do the opposite, but it copes with more aggression. And I couldn't tell you how they do it, because it doesn't feel like, so for example, if you think back to something from like 15 years ago or something, and if you did that, you would notice, say, the traction control cut in or the stability control really stifle it. But this car doesn't. It just feels like it's just very, very linear. If it is intervening, you cannot feel it. And I think that's the big steps in the last sort of iterations. And this one I can feel is quite big. This car feels similar to the RS in the way it actually performs with much less downforce. These cars, they feel like they shouldn't be able to do what they can do. You know what I mean? Yeah. It's difficult to describe. From my point of view, that's the best way I can describe it, I think.
Well, the big step was the double wishbone front. I remember most of the drivers were speaking about that in the last iteration, and the kind of lateral grip that allowed drivers. What have they done? They've used the GT3 RS front.
Yeah, and it's got the teardrop bottom arm, so it's got more aero. Not a lot more. They just say it's got increased aero. Yeah. They just have little subtle things, and then it has more front because it looks like the RS diffuser to try and balance it. So you can't just obviously give one end more downforce without balancing it with the other end.
Yeah.
So they've done a good job of doing that.
Do you find that in teaching executive driver, or where are they in the limit of that car? And our hot lap together, was that on the limit of the car, do you think, or there's a bit more?
Yeah, no, that was me approaching the limit, absolutely. Yeah, it can go faster without you in it, of course, because of just the actual physics and weight. In terms of how I attack that lap, no, that's getting pretty close. You know, like there's probably a little bit of margin at turn one, because, you know, I think minimum with you, I saw 180. Maybe you could do 185, getting close to 190 by myself. But, you know, the risk versus reward with the client in the car is not what that day's about. Yeah. But certainly all the other corners, you would have noticed the car sliding and on the limit, for sure. It doesn't have big moments. I was super impressed with it. I mean, that's the first time I've attacked that car. I mean, it's the first time I've seen it as well as you have. I was actually genuinely impressed, and it felt much more like an RS than I thought it would. I thought it would be a lot sketchier with the downforce decrease coming from that car. The only reason I reference it against that is because that's the current car in our lineup, and that's the car I have the most experience with over the last couple of years. And that's the only car, even race car included, that I'm like, oh yeah, this thing's just, every time you get in it, you're just amazed at the grip level and the feeling it gives you.
The RS.
And but this GT3 is actually very similar feeling. You know, it just gives you this sense of confidence. I don't know what it is, even driving slow. And Chris was next to me, he's like, yeah, man, these things just feel almost too good now. It really is getting close to race car performance and race car feel. Yeah. So it really is bridging that gap. There's not a huge amount of lap time difference. If you bolted a set of slicks on that car, far out to get close.
Yeah, it's pretty amazing it can do that on those tyres.
Yeah, it is. It absolutely is. Reading the specs on it and getting decreased length in the bump stop, that helps. So over a bump, it stays linear for a lot longer. You know, it doesn't get into this infinite, you know, spring rate once it does get into the bump stop, which is what affects cars too much. You would have even noticed over the curbs, it didn't unsettle it at all. You know, and that's very impressive.
Yeah, we had a bit of like, I'm not sure what you call it, like a weight transfer kind of moment on those last two corners before the straight, and the car just handled it amazing.
Yeah. It's Porsche. It's got the weight's in the rear. Like it shouldn't work as well as it works. Obviously, you know, been dealing with 911s since what is it, 1960 or whatever it is. It's a long time to be dealing with. You just keep refining it and get better, I'm sure. When
I got home, my body just wasn't coping with that lap, which is probably some lifestyle choices.
The sense, the feeling this thing gives you, and I mean most general public are not going to get anywhere in the limit of that car, are they? I think that's probably where you're getting at with that. You do not need an RS for sure. I mean, I love the RS. Once you get hooked on downforce, it's like a drug. But to give you an idea, I've been around that place as fast as a race car in an RS with slick tyres. So a client of ours put slick tyres on it, and it matches. It's not quite as fast as a cup car, but it can match most other race cars. I think it was probably just as fast as my last ever supercars race there, like a 31. You know what I mean? Yeah. It's just like, that's nuts. And now this GT3, to me, is getting much closer to that as well. So it really is getting very, very race car speed-wise. And the only thing that lets a road car down, of course, is weight. You can't argue with physics. Like it's what is it? A cup car is, I think, 1260. Yeah, that car is 1480. You know what I mean? So call it 200. Even if it's 150 kilograms, that's 2 seconds a lap in weight. You know what I mean? Regardless. So you can see if you took some weight out of that car, how much. And the weight, of course, is passenger seats and all this stuff, all the airbags and all the crash structures you need to have, of course, in a road car. But man, it's fast. And obviously the learnings they get from cup cars and whatever else, they just start to filter it down into the road car stuff. And I'm sure there's a lot more things they could put on these cars, but they've got to have somewhere to go too, I guess, don't they?
Speaking of aero, can you feel the difference between the touring pack and the one with the wing? Is there much in it?
Surprisingly not. It looks from the outside like it should have a lot more aero, doesn't it? Those are red cars, the Vice Arcs. No, it's actually amazing how balanced the other car feels as well. The reason is, I mean, you look at the front of them, the front aero is pretty much the same.
Yeah.
So then again, you cannot have the rear more out of balance either. So they're not going to suddenly just make the front, have a heap more and the rear not, So again, very, very clever and good at balancing the car. I don't know if you even noticed, there's no stability control lights come on, or nothing tells you that you're over the limit. I'm not sure if you even noticed that, but a lot of other cars, you'll see that, the traction lights flash off and stability lights flash off. You just don't get that in a Porsche. And if you do see it, you've done something really bad, as a driver. Certainly an everyday man sports car.
It does flatter you, doesn't it?
Yeah, it absolutely. That's probably the word. It flatters you big time. Yeah. Absolutely. Maybe you should be a journo.
Yeah. And one last thing. I drove the Touring in the PDK, and then I got into the manual with the wing.
Yep. I was super pumped to drive a manual. You just don't do it anymore. You just don't do it enough. And I mean, a lot of the questions I got were, what would you choose? And to me, as a race driver, you always choose the fastest. So regardless if it feels better or feels worse, whatever's quickest on the stopwatch, you choose, right? So PDK, it's heavier, but the shifts are much faster and it's faster. So that's what ultimately I would choose. The manual, man, it's such a good manual, and the clutch is light, the shifts are positive. It's just so nice to be able to have that feeling again. I'm not sure why most other manufacturers can't get that same feeling, that same clutch feeling. And I think back to, FPV days and really heavy clutches. And it's a $400,000 car, optioned up. So you expect it to be good. But
True.
Yeah, but I really love the manual. We'll get them at the school. I get 4 of them next year. It's so fun.
All right, Luke. Well, thanks so much.
Cheers. See ya.
Thanks for watching. If you haven't seen the new issue, Duck and Whale 24 is out. Go take a look on the website. It is a beautiful magazine. Come support us. We would love your support. All right, I'm Lee. I'll see you next time.